Welcome to the car installation video. As you can see in my situation, I've already installed the unit into my 2007 Hyundai Santa Fe. Unfortunately, when I started this installation project, I had no idea there was going to be a video series, so I didn't document my journey when it occurred. But hopefully some of these tips will help you if you're trying to install any aftermarket car radio in a Hyundai Santa Fe model years 2007 through 2012. So the basic situation you're going to have is to remove the radio complex and or the climate control complex. You need to remove this false plastic wood grain trim. Now this entire wood grain trim piece all comes out as one unit. It's one continuous plastic piece, and it's very thin over here and very fragile. So you have to pop it out with extreme care. Now, the way I think that you should do it is I'll show you a behind the dash view. There are clips every so often in here. And you'll start at this end or start at that end. And what I think you should do is stick a body removal tool, very thin plastic. Don't use anything metal. And you'll start on this end and stick it in the corner, at the bottom and the top, over each plastic tab. Your objective is to pull the tab straight out. If you attempt to pull the tab in towards the vehicle, you're going to crack it. I cracked mine right here. This piece will flex and crack. So your objective is that you don't want to try to pull it down or up. Once it starts to come out, you want to pull it straight out, and you want to make sure that as the piece comes out, that there's not a lot of stress on the pieces still remaining inside. That's why you don't want to pull on this to gain leverage. You want to put in here and keep it going down and pull it straight out. All right. Now, the other thing that is to note, I'll come around the other side, is on this side, on the left side of the vehicle, this trim piece actually fits in underneath a ridge right by the key. And in order to get this section released, you have to unscrew this Phillips head screw, and then you grab with your fingers up underneath and you pull this straight out towards. The key will stay, the key lock cylinder will stay in place. This black rubber piece will come with you, and you pull this straight out. You don't need to disconnect or unscrew anything else really. You just need it to pop out about an inch or so, and then you'll be able to get the false wood grain trim piece unlatched from where it is behind here. So that's the trick over on the left-hand side. All right, a trick on the right-hand side to get the trim piece started is you can remove the body molding just up to this part, just to expose this panel. And then there's no screws. You just need to take a screwdriver, flat bladed, put it in the little tab area here, and just pry this open. So you just flip it underneath there, and we're going to pry it open. And if you have this molding pulled back, you'll be able to stick your fingers under here, pull it all the way, and take it out. This gets you access to see what's going on above the glove box, but behind the trim, and you can actually see it in there. So I'm going to take my cell phone and I'll show you a view, and you'll be able to see where these tabs are. More importantly, if you stick your head over here, you'll be able to see or take a pair of long needle nose pliers and start removing the tabs from the opposite side, which will really prevent this thing from breaking. Here you can see behind the dash. The two dark brown parts are the mounts for the dash trim we want to remove. The pin on the left, pointed to by the white arrow, is a locator pin and will come right out with the trim piece. The clip to the right, pointed to by the green arrow, is the clip we need to release. There is a piece of metal that wraps around the top and bottom. To release, you need to squeeze the top and bottom together slightly and then push the brown part through the receptacle to release the trim. I have provided links in the video description to other videos that illustrate the trim removal procedure. I will now continue with the radio replacement itself. Here is my Santa Fe with the trim piece and the air vent shroud removed as well. The air vent and the 3 or 4 switches will be transferred to the shroud that comes with the new radio. If you are experiencing issues with the climate controls, such as the fan speed randomly changing or cutting out, now would be an excellent time to remove the climate controls. See the links in the video description for instructions on disassembling and cleaning the climate controls if you need to do it at this time. On the workbench, you will need to remove the clock airbag module from the top of the original shroud and set it aside for later mounting in the vehicle. You will also need to remove the 2 air vents and the 3 or 4 switches from the original shroud and transfer these components to the shroud that comes with the new radio. Now would also be a good time to plug in the appropriate wiring harness adapter into the back of the new radio. After removing the 4 mounting screws, the radio will slide out of the dash. On the back of the radio, there will be a round antenna cable that just pulls right out. There will also be 1 or more wiring harness connectors, depending upon the style of radio. On my vehicle, there are 2 connectors that need to be unplugged. They are locked into place with 2 blue locking tabs that must be pried outward with a small tool and then depressed towards the bottom of the radio while pulling the entire connector outward to release. See the video linked in the description for more help with removing this style of connector. Here you can see the dash ready to receive the new radio and shroud assembly. The connector at the very top should be routed through the opening for the dash speaker or tray that was removed earlier. I also suggest that you route the GPS antenna either up through the top of the dash or inside the dash tray. I also routed the 2 remote USB wires down behind the climate controls and out the front where the ashtray is located. Plug the 3 or 4 connectors for the switches located above the climate controls into the new radio shroud first. Then, plug the vehicle radio connectors into the radio wiring harness. Next, attach the GPS connector and the USB connectors to the back of the new radio. Leave the antenna cable disconnected at this time. It's very short and will need to be connected after the radio is fully mounted and secured in the dash. Finally, align the vents on either side with the holes in the dash and push the shroud and radio back straight until it fits flush with the rest of the dash. This is the way it should look at this stage of the installation. Once the unit is mounted, reach in through the top and plug in the FM antenna. If your cable is too short, you can buy an extension. Now would be a good time to test out the basic operation of the radio. But before you do, it is imperative that you reconnect the clock airbag module first. Plug the connector wire into the back of the module and leave it on the dash for now. Woohoo! If you made it this far, it's time to test out the radio in the car. Put the vehicle in accessory mode, and the boot sequence for the radio should appear on the screen. Once the boot sequence is finished, you can test out the FM radio, the media player, and configure your speakers. Don't forget to test out the GPS functionality as well. As you can see, the replacement fascia does not have a place for the digital clock module, but more importantly, this module also contains the passenger airbag, and if you don't reconnect it and put it in the car electrically connected, you will get an airbag warning message, and you'll also get a code on the computer saying that the supplemental restraint system airbag doesn't work. So even though there's no place for this in the replacement fascia, you still must connect it up and at least put it in behind the dash so that the car computer does not complain. So this was my solution. I just took it, reconnected it, and then I found an old sock just so that it doesn't bang around and make noise when it's being stored in the area. And then I'll just stick it down in the cavity down below where it's not going to be hitting anything. behind the radio, and then we can go ahead and replace the cover and put the screws back in, and then that takes care of the installation, and you won't get any error messages or warning messages. This completes the replacement of the OEM radio with an Android head unit aftermarket radio in your vehicle. At this point, you could stop and just enjoy the upgraded audio and the additional navigation features. However, a backup camera typically comes with a lot of these Android head unit kits. And in the final section of this video, I'm going to cover how to integrate the backup camera into this Santa Fe vehicle, including the wiring and the mounting of the backup camera. Stay tuned. All right, after the Android head unit has been installed, if you want to go the extra step of putting in a backup camera, you're going to need to plan how to get the wire from where the radio is located all the way to the back hatch. Now, when you're coming out of the radio, I found it was easier to go to the right-hand side behind the glove box. So my wire goes down behind the glove box underneath, and then it comes down this pillar, and I took off this sill plate. This one just simply pulls straight up with a removal tool. As you can see from the underside of the sill plate, there are 6 tabs and no fasteners that hold the plate. You need to carefully pull the tabs outward while gently prying up to release each tab. Here is what the raceway looks like once the sill plate has been removed. And then I was able to fish the wire right underneath this mid-range A-pillar. With just fish. And then I removed the rear sill plate. It's again another plastic piece that's got 6 fingers on it. I'll show you a picture, and lift straight off. And then once you get past the rear seat, you have a large piece of body molding. Let me show you on the other side. This large body molding on the right-hand side, you need to be able to fish the wire up through it. And it becomes really hard to do that because this entire piece needs to come out. You can't just remove this access panel. That doesn't give you enough room to get down above the wheel well. I removed both rear cargo boxes, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 easy to reach bolts. Removes both cargo boxes, and then just a couple of clips to remove the rear trim. And that allows me to get access to the right-hand side trim panel. I'll screw on the bottom, and then everything pries off. And then the rear pillar trim, there's a screw on the top underneath the SRS sticker, and then the that top of that comes off. There's a screw underneath. There's actually 2. So you'll see right here, there's a screw underneath that needs to be taken off in order to gain access, and there's another screw in there if you want to take the whole panel off. But once you have the 2 screws in the panel down below removed, there's one in there and one over there, that'll allow you to swing this panel pretty much all the way, so you can get the wire all the way over the wheel well. So the additional strategy is you're going to have to get the wire through here and up this chase here. The ultimate goal is to bring it up and fish it through this flexible rubber waterproof cable. Now there's a ton of wires in here, so it's really tight. And you might consider on my vehicle that there actually is holes on the opposite side if you bring it up the other side, but you still need to worry about waterproofing issues. So I elected to go through the rubber waterproof rubber hose. You can take it off on both ends. You can stretch it out a little bit. It is tough, but it is doable. And then from there, you're going to go up into the body molding here, around the right side of the window. And then this bottom piece comes right off. There's the main screw underneath the strap on an 07, and there's a couple of screws. There's 4 of them in total. You can see them on the corners. And then this body piece comes straight down. When you do that, that gives you access to remove this piece of body molding that holds the license plate lights in it. And I can remove that entire piece, and that allowed me to mount my backup camera right there and have the wire go right underneath where it snakes up on the bottom. So that was my strategy. Okay, we're actually finishing up our installation. We've opened up the top. We've connected the back wire to the wire going down. At the radio, I connected the yellow RCA style video cable to the corresponding connector at the harness. The orange wire, which runs the length of the cable, should be connected to the backup or camera enable wire on the harness. In the photo, they are not shown as connected, but they will be. I'll zoom in over here. We actually took the glove box out, but we didn't need to. We could just take out this panel and the wiring. You can see a black wire snakes up, and behind the front panel we really didn't need to take anything off here. We were just able to snake it down by taking the molding off on the door here. And when you take the molding off on the door, then you can move the wire in the channel. And you can see the wire right here goes along the channel underneath the sill plate. And then it goes along back the middle A-frame pillar, which I did not take off. And then if we go back to the rear door, the wire picks up here at the rear door. Again, you take the rubber weather stripping off, and that takes care of it really well. And here was the biggest problem. The biggest problem is you cannot get the connector through this rubber hose. It's just not enough room. It's just very constrained. So I ended up damaging the connector on the way in. It would have been too short anyway. Here's a close-up of the damaged connector. You can see when I try to feed it through that rubber thing, the center pin got bent right off when it's in that wiring harness. If you do need to cut it, check your polarities. But in my connector, the yellow wire was the center pin over here, and the red wire in the cable sheath actually is the one that goes to the orange one that comes out. So if you're going to cut the wire and connect, the yellow wire goes to the camera and the red wire goes to power. So what I ended up doing is the connector got damaged, so I ended up cutting the end off here, extending a wire. The red wire is now the power wire, which comes out as, I guess that's the orange one that normally comes out. And I put my own extension for the yellow connector that goes over there. And in the Hyundai, I took power, let's see if I can get a nice picture of this. I took power from this connector here that goes to the rear tail lights. You need to go to the black wire, which is in position 4 on the right, and you need the purple wire, which is in position 2 on this connector to get the backup lights. At the back hatch, connect the black ground wire for the camera power to a nearby appropriate body ground. I connected my ground to the black and silver ground wire on the backup light connector. Next, connect the camera power red wire and the orange control wire from the camera video cable together and attach both to the purple wire on the backup light connector. At the front of the car, plug the video connector into the radio and connect the orange control wire to the backup wire on the harness. This lets the radio know when it's time to display the rear camera image. You are now ready to start testing the backup camera. Here is the procedure. Make sure the parking brake is set. Put the key on the accessory position. Do not start the engine. Wait for the head unit to boot fully. Put your foot on the brake and shift into reverse. If all goes well and the rear hatch is still open, the radio display should switch to a picture of the sky. Once you shift from reverse to park or any other gear, the main radio screen should reappear. Measure the voltage at the rear hatch where the backup lights are wired to the camera power and video cable. It should be 12 volts when the gear is in reverse and the backup lights are on. If that checks out, measure power at the radio backup or reverse wire. It should also measure 12 volts when the gear selector is in reverse and 0 volts otherwise. Remember, this voltage is coming from the rear hatch backup lights via the third wire in the video cable. If the display shows a black screen or an error message while in reverse, first check the power at the camera, then check the video cable connectors at both ends. If that does not solve the problem, disconnect the video cable at both ends, short one end with a piece of wire, and check the video cable continuity from front to back. If the display shows a black screen or an error message while not in reverse, check the voltage at the backup or reverse wire at the radio. It should measure 0 volts or near 0 volts when the vehicle is not in reverse. Now, my last set of steps, I'm going to put the rear plastic panels back on after taking the wires and lashing them on some existing wiring so they don't come off. And then I'm going to put all the plastic panels back on. These ones by the feet just push back straight down. So, and then the ones in the front, that just screws on with 2 screws. The bottom plate, the only plate you need to take off. Thanks for watching this video series. If you made it this far and haven't fallen asleep, congratulations. Hope you have success with your upgrade.